You're tracking mud everywhere.
It's raining, Rex. People track mud when it rains.
We don't have people. We have 0 customers. Because the espresso machine is dead and the roof leaks. The only thing you bought is a giant trash can.
I bought a gold mine. You just lack vision.
Vision. Right. You bought this place to stalk your ex next door. Don't lie to me.
It's pathetic. Watch your mouth. I am your boss now.
You sign my paychecks. You don't own me. And if you think I'm gonna help you play some crazy revenge game...
Rain hit the cracked glass of the coffee shop window like tiny bullets. New York City was miserable today, which fit Sophia's mood perfectly. She stood perfectly still, her dark eyes locked on the building right next door. The sign over there was shiny and gold, Matthew's Premier Events. Just seeing Matt's name made her hands shake. 2 weeks ago, she had been standing in a white dress, surrounded by 200 guests. She was waiting for the music to start. Instead, her phone buzzed in her hand. It was a text from Matt. "I can't do this, Soph. I need to focus on my business, I'm sorry." A text message. That was all she got after 3 years. She looked down at the heavy brass key in her hand. The metal was cold. She had taken every single dollar she had, her savings, the honeymoon fund, the emergency cash hidden in her sock drawer, and she bought the failing coffee shop right next to Matt's perfect little empire. The place was a total dump. It smelled like old mop water and burnt beans. The floor tiles were peeling. But it shared a brick wall with her ex-fiancé, and she was going to turn it into a high-end venue that would steal every single one of his rich clients. She was going to ruin him. "You're tracking mud everywhere." Sophia blinked and turned around. Behind the sticky wooden counter stood the only employee that came with the purchase of the building, Rex. He was wiping the counter with a dirty rag, looking like he wanted to be literally anywhere else on earth. He had sharp cheekbones, messy black hair that fell into his dark eyes, and a scowl that could freeze boiling water. He wore a black t-shirt under a faded grey apron. His arms were tense as he wiped the wood, showing off a thick map of black ink tattoos wrapping around his forearms. "It's raining, Rex," Sophia said, crossing her arms over her damp coat. "People track mud when it rains." "We don't have people," Rex fired back, tossing the rag into a sink. "We have 0 customers, because the espresso machine is dead and the roof leaks. The only thing you bought is a giant trash can." "I bought a gold mine," she said, lifting her chin. "You just lack vision." Rex let out a dark, mocking laugh. "Vision, right. You bought this place to stalk your ex next door. Don't lie to me, it's pathetic." Sophia felt her face get hot. "Watch your mouth, I am your boss now." Rex leaned forward, resting both hands on the counter. He stared right at her, his eyes cold and empty. "You sign my paychecks, you don't own me. And if you think I'm going to help you play some crazy revenge game..." The little bell above the front door jingled loudly, cutting him off. A man in a sharp, expensive grey suit walked in. He didn't look like he belonged in a rundown Brooklyn cafe. He looked like old money and bad news. He walked straight past Sophia and dropped a thick, heavy envelope onto the counter right in front of Rex. "Vanguard Holdings," the suit said, his voice slick. "You have exactly 1 week to take the buyout offer or we force an eviction. Your choice." The suit looked up, his eyes locking onto Rex's face. The suit froze. All the color drained from his skin. Rex didn't move a single muscle, but his dark eyes turned completely lethal. "Before we find out what is in that envelope, and why this corporate suit looks terrified of our grumpy barista, please leave a like on this video. It really helps the algorithm push more stories just like this to you. Also, let me know in the comments, have you ever wanted revenge on an ex so bad that you did something a little crazy to get back at them? Tell me your story. And if you are enjoying Sophia and Rex's tense standoff so far, make sure to hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a single part of their journey. Now, let's get back into the shop. The suit took a slow step backward. His eyes were wide, darting from the thick envelope on the counter to Rex's blank face. Sophia watched the exchange, her brow pulling together in confusion. Why was a corporate developer looking at her angry barista like he had just seen a ghost? Rex didn't say a word. He just picked up the dirty rag again and started wiping the counter, moving slow and deliberate. I didn't realize," the suit stammered, his voice suddenly shaking. "I'm just the messenger. They told me to drop off the paperwork." "You dropped it," Rex said. His voice was low, barely more than a whisper, but it carried a sharp edge that made the hair on Sophia's arms stand up. "Now pick it back up and get out." The suit swallowed hard. He reached out with a trembling hand, snatched the thick envelope off the counter, and practically ran for the door. The little bell chimed frantically as he yanked the door open and disappeared into the heavy rain. Sophia stood frozen for a full 10 seconds. She looked at the door, then turned slowly to look at Rex. He was still wiping the exact same spot on the counter, his jaw clenched tight. "What the hell was that?" she asked, her voice loud in the quiet shop. "A guy dropped trash on my counter," Rex said without looking up. "I told him to take it out." "He looked at you like you were going to kill him," Sophia pressed, taking a step closer to the counter. She narrowed her dark eyes at him. "Who are you, Rex?" Rex finally stopped wiping. He threw the rag into the sink with a wet slap and turned his dark stare on her. "I'm the guy who makes the coffee, and since the machine is busted, I'm the guy who stands here doing nothing while you waste your money on a pipe dream." "It is not a pipe dream," she snapped, getting annoyed all over again. She walked up to the counter and slammed her hand flat against the sticky wood. "I am going to fix this place up. I'm going to rip out these nasty floors, paint the walls, fix the lighting, and turn this into the premier event space in this neighborhood." Rex leaned against the back counter, crossing his heavily tattooed arms over his chest. He looked her up and down, a slow, insulting sweep that made her want to punch him. "You, rip out floors. You look like you'd break a nail trying to open a sugar packet." "I will have you know I am very handy," Sophia lied. She had never swung a hammer in her life. "And I don't care how hard it is. I am going to build a business that makes Matt's place look like a cheap hot dog stand." "Right, Matt." Rex rolled his eyes, a deep sigh leaving his chest. "The guy who dumped you at the altar. You know, most normal women just get drunk, cry for a week, and key their ex's car. They don't buy a condemned building just to sit next door and watch him be happy." "He won't be happy," Sophia said, her voice dropping lower, "because I'm going to steal all his clients, every single one. I know his pricing, I know his vendor list, and I know exactly what he lacks." "And what does he lack?" Rex asked, his tone dripping with sarcasm. "Soul," she said quickly. "His events are stiff, corporate, boring. I'm going to bring life into this place. A coffee shop by day, a high-end, exclusive venue by night." Rex stared at her for a long time. The rain kept beating against the window, the only sound in the quiet room. He slowly pushed himself off the back counter and walked toward her. He stopped when he was standing right across the counter from her. He was tall, much taller than she realized, and up close she could see the dark circles under his eyes. He looked tired. He looked dangerous. "You have no money left," Rex stated simply. "You spent it all on the deed." "I'll get a loan," she fired back, refusing to back down. "The banks won't give you a dime. You're unemployed and you own a failing building." He tilted his head slightly, his dark eyes searching her face. "And you have developers breathing down your neck. That suit today, he'll be back. Vanguard Holdings doesn't just ask nicely and walk away. They force people out. They play dirty." "Let them try," Sophia said, lifting her chin. "I'm not scared of some greedy suits." Rex let out a dry, humorless chuckle. "You should be." He turned away from her and grabbed a sleek black kettle from the back shelf. He turned on a small hot plate and set the kettle down. He moved with a quiet, smooth grace that didn't fit his rough appearance. "What are you doing?" she asked, watching him closely. "Making coffee," he muttered, "since you're clearly not leaving and you look like you're freezing." Sophia realized she was shivering. Her coat was completely soaked through from the walk from the subway. She wrapped her arms tighter around herself. "You can make coffee without the machine." "Pour over," he said, pulling a glass carafe and a paper filter from a cabinet. "It takes longer, but it tastes better than that crap you get from a machine anyway." She watched him work. He was precise. He measured the dark beans on a tiny digital scale, then poured them into a grinder. The loud buzzing filled the room for a few seconds. When it stopped, the rich, bitter smell of fresh coffee filled the damp air. It was the first good thing she had smelled all day. He poured the hot water over the grounds in slow, steady circles. He was focused. He looked peaceful for exactly 10 seconds. Then he poured the dark liquid into a white ceramic mug and pushed it across the counter toward her. "Drink," he ordered. Sophia picked up the mug. It was hot, warming her freezing fingers instantly. She brought it to her lips and took a small sip. Her eyes widened. It was the best coffee she had ever tasted. Smooth, bold, and perfectly balanced. She took another, bigger sip. "This is amazing," she said, looking at him in surprise. "Where did you learn to make coffee like this?" Rex's jaw tightened instantly. The peace in his face vanished, replaced by that cold, hard wall. Around. Around, she pushed, taking another sip. You don't learn how to do this around. You had to be trained. Drink the coffee and stop asking questions, he snapped, grabbing the rag again and aggressively scrubbing a spot on the counter that was already clean. Sophia rolled her eyes. You are literally the grumpiest person I have ever met. How did the old owner even stand you? He paid me in cash under the table and didn't ask about my life, Rex said flatly. It was a good deal, then you showed up. Well, you're stuck with me now, Sophia said, setting the mug down. She leaned closer to him, a small, daring smile on her lips. Unless you want to quit. Rex stopped wiping. He looked up, catching her gaze. He stared at her mouth for a second before his dark eyes flicked up to hers. I don't quit, ever. Good, because starting tomorrow we're ripping up these floors. Rex glared at her. There is no we. I pour coffee, I don't do manual labor. You do what your boss tells you to do, Sophia teased, feeling a strange spark of energy fighting with this man. It was the first time in 2 weeks she wasn't thinking about Matt, about the empty church, about the pity in her mother's eyes. Arguing with Rex was distracting. It was almost fun. I'll bring the sledgehammer, she said sweetly. Rex opened his mouth to insult her again, but the little bell above the front door jingled. Sophia turned her head, a smart remark dying on her tongue. The breath left her lungs in a fast, painful rush. Standing in the doorway, shaking off a black umbrella, was Matt. He looked exactly the same. Perfect blonde hair, perfectly tailored navy blue suit, perfect white teeth. He looked expensive and calm. He didn't look like a man who had destroyed her life with a text message 14 days ago. He looked like a man who was having a great Tuesday. Matt lowered his umbrella and looked around the dusty, dim coffee shop. His nose wrinkled in disgust. Then his blue eyes landed on Sophia. Sophia, Matt said, his voice dripping with fake concern, what are you doing in a place like this? Sophia couldn't speak. Her hands gripped the edge of the wooden counter so hard her knuckles turned white. The anger inside her was so hot it felt like it was burning her chest, but the words wouldn't come out. She felt small. She felt stupid. Suddenly Rex stepped right next to her. He didn't touch her, but his shoulder brushed against hers. The heat coming off his body was grounding. He crossed his arms over his chest and glared at Matt with a look so deadly, Matt actually took a small step back. Can we help you? Rex asked, his voice low and threatening. Or are you just standing there to drip water on my dirty floor? Matt blinked, looking offended. He stood up straighter, puffing out his chest. I'm talking to her, not you. He looked back at Sophia, his face softening into a pitying smile that made her want to scream. Seriously, Soph, when my assistant told me you bought this dump, I didn't believe it. I came over here to make sure you were okay. Are you having some kind of breakdown? Sophia found her voice. It came out shaky at first, but then she forced it steady. I'm perfectly fine, Matt. I'm just checking on my new property. Matt let out a short, mean laugh. Your property, right, Soph, be reasonable. You're an event planner, not a construction worker. And you're broke. You don't have the capital to fix a sink, let alone flip a commercial building. That is none of your business, she said, lifting her chin. It is my business when you buy the building attached to mine, Matt snapped, dropping the nice guy act. His eyes narrowed. I have high-end clients coming in and out every day. I can't have a condemned hazard right next door making my block look cheap. Sell it, Sophia. I'll even buy it from you. I'll give you exactly what you paid and you can go back to your parents' house and figure out your life. I am not selling to you, she said, her voice rising. You have to sell to someone, Matt yelled, stepping closer. Vanguard Holdings has been trying to buy this block for months. They'll force you out. They have lawyers, Sophia. You have a broken espresso machine and a bad attitude. She has me. The words came out of Rex's mouth before Sophia even realized he had moved. Rex stepped out from behind the counter, moving slowly toward Matt. Rex was easily 4 inches taller than Matt and twice as broad. The tattoos, the dark scowl, the lazy, dangerous way he walked, it made Matt look like a scared little boy. Matt swallowed hard, taking another step back toward the door. Who the hell are you? Rex stopped a few feet away from Matt. He tilted his head, a dark, mocking smile spreading across his lips. It was a terrifying smile. I'm the guy who's going to throw you out into the rain if you don't leave my shop in the next 3 seconds. Matt opened his mouth to argue, but he looked at Rex's eyes and closed it again. He grabbed his umbrella tight. He looked at Sophia one last time. You're making a massive mistake, Matt sneered. You're going to lose everything. She already lost the dead weight, Rex said softly. Now get out. Matt spun around, yanked the door open, and stormed out into the rain. The bell chimed happily as the door slammed shut behind him. The coffee shop was dead quiet again. Sophia let out a long, shaky breath. Her heart was beating so fast she felt dizzy. She looked at Rex. He was staring out the window, watching Matt walk away. "Thank you," she whispered. Rex turned his head and looked at her. The dangerous look was gone, replaced by his usual grumpy scowl. He walked back behind the counter and picked up his dirty rag. "Don't thank me," he muttered, scrubbing the wood. "I just hate his suit, and if you're serious about this stupid plan—" He paused, looking up at her through his dark lashes. "Then show up tomorrow at 6 in the morning, wear boots. We have a floor to rip up." Sophia smiled. It was a real, genuine smile. "I thought you didn't do manual labor." Rex glared at her. "Shut up and finish your coffee, boss." The subway car was completely empty at 5 in the morning. Sophia sat on the hard orange plastic seat and stared at her reflection in the dark window. She wore black yoga pants that cost more than her grocery bill, a spotless grey college hoodie, and brand new yellow work boots. She looked like a girl pretending to be a construction worker for Halloween. The air outside the Brooklyn station was freezing. The rain from yesterday was gone, leaving behind a bitter, biting wind that whipped trash down the empty street. Sophia pulled her hood up and walked the 4 blocks to the coffee shop. The sky was still a dark, bruised purple. The only light on the whole street came from Matt's building next door. The gold letters of Matthew's premier events glowed under perfect spotlights. Sophia looked away and shoved her key into the rusty lock of her own door. It stuck. She jiggled it, cursed under her breath, and shoved her shoulder against the wood. The door flew open, sending her stumbling inside. "You are 10 minutes early." Sophia jumped, clapping a hand over her heart. Rex was sitting on a flipped-over milk crate behind the counter. The shop was totally dark except for a single bare bulb hanging from the ceiling. He was wearing faded work jeans and a tight white t-shirt covered in paint stains. His dark hair was tied back in a messy knot, making the sharp angles of his jaw look even rougher. He held a steaming mug of coffee in one large hand. "And you are already here," Sophia said, catching her breath. She walked in and shut the door behind her to block the freezing wind. "Do you sleep in here?" "No," Rex said, standing up. He looked slowly down at her brand new yellow boots, then up to her perfectly clean hoodie. A slow, insulting smirk spread across his face. "Nice boots. Did they come with a toy hammer?" "Shut up," she snapped, dropping her bag on a dusty table. "They are highly rated for safety. Now, where is the coffee? I am freezing." Rex pointed a long finger at a black thermos on the counter. "Pour it yourself, and don't spill it. It is the last good batch of beans we have." Sophia walked over and poured the hot, dark liquid into a paper cup. The smell alone made her feel a little more awake. She took a sip and let out a happy sigh. "Okay, so what is the plan? Where do we start?" Rex walked out from behind the counter. He reached into a large canvas bag on the floor and pulled out 2 heavy steel crowbars. He tossed one directly at her chest. Sophia dropped her coffee cup, barely catching the heavy metal bar before it hit her toes. The hot coffee splashed all over her new boots. "Damn it, Rex," she yelled, jumping back. "Lesson 1, he said, totally ignoring her anger. "Always be ready to catch. Lesson 2, coffee stays off the work floor." He turned his back on her and walked to the center of the room. The floor was covered in nasty, peeling green linoleum. Underneath that was a layer of rotting plywood. "We start here," Rex said. "We rip all this green garbage up, then we pull the nails out of the wood. Then we see how bad the actual floorboards underneath are. My guess, they are totally ruined." "You are a ray of sunshine," Sophia muttered. She wiped the spilled coffee off her boot with a napkin and walked over to him. She gripped the cold steel crowbar with both hands. "Show me how to do it." Rex looked at her hands. "Where are your gloves?" "Gloves?" Rex let out a heavy sigh and rubbed the back of his neck. "You are going to rip your hands to shreds in 5 minutes. Just watch me." He crouched down, his knees popping in the quiet room. He jammed the flat end of his crowbar into a crack between 2 green tiles. The muscles in his thick arms flexed hard against his white shirt. He didn't even look like he was trying. He just leaned back, and a massive chunk of the floor ripped upward with a loud, tearing crack. Dust flew into the air, smelling like dirt and old glue. "You get under the seam," Rex said, tossing the broken tile to the side. "You push down to lift up. Use your body weight, not just your arms. You weigh what, 100 pounds? If you just pull with your arms, you will snap a muscle. I weigh 130, Sophia corrected him, offended. And I go to Pilates. My core is very strong. Rex looked at her, his dark eyes trailing down to her stomach and back up to her face. Pilates won't pull up 50-year-old glue, princess. Try it. Sophia gripped her crowbar. She stepped up to the spot where Rex had ripped the tile. She jammed her metal bar into the crack. She pushed down. Nothing happened. The metal just slipped out and she almost fell forward on her face. Rex let out a short, mean laugh. Shut up, she growled. She jammed the bar back in. This time she leaned her whole body weight onto the handle. The wood groaned, the metal bit into the glue. She pushed harder, gritting her teeth. Her hands were already starting to burn. Suddenly the tile snapped. A piece roughly the size of her hand flew up and hit her in the shin. Ow, she hissed, dropping the bar. Good job, Rex said dryly. Only 5,000 square feet left to go. We should be done by the time you are 70. I hate you, she said, picking the bar back up. Everyone does, he replied simply. For the next 2 hours they didn't speak. The only sounds in the coffee shop were the loud cracks of breaking wood, the scraping of metal, and their heavy breathing. Sophia's arms felt like they were filled with wet sand. Her back ached in places she didn't even know she had muscles. Her perfect grey hoodie was covered in black dust and sweat. Her hands were bright red and covered in forming blisters. She looked over at Rex. He was a machine. He had ripped up almost a quarter of the room by himself. His white shirt was soaked with sweat sticking to his broad back. He moved with a steady, brutal rhythm. Stab, push, rip, toss the trash. Stab, push, rip. Sophia stopped to catch her breath. She wiped her sweaty forehead with the back of her dirty hand. Hey, Rex. He didn't stop working. Keep pulling. I need a break, she panted, dropping her crowbar. It hit the wood with a loud clang. My hands are bleeding. Rex finally stopped. He leaned on his crowbar like a walking stick and looked at her. He walked over, grabbing her wrist before she could pull away. His grip was firm but oddly gentle. His hands were huge, rough, and completely covered in calluses. He turned her palms up. 3 angry red blisters had popped, leaving raw, bleeding skin behind. He frowned, his dark eyebrows pulling together. I told you to get gloves. I didn't know, she defended herself, feeling a strange flutter in her chest at how closely he was looking at her hands. The heat coming off his body was intense. He smelled like sawdust and black coffee. Sit down, he ordered, dropping her hands. He walked behind the counter and dug through a lower cabinet. He came back holding a small white first aid kit and a roll of white athletic tape. He pointed to the flipped-over milk crate. Sophia sat down, feeling her legs shake. Rex knelt on the dirty floor right in front of her. He opened the kit and pulled out a small alcohol pad. This is going to sting. I can do it, she said, reaching for the pad. He swatted her hand away. You'll do it wrong, hold still. He took her right hand. He rubbed the cold, wet alcohol pad over her torn blisters. Sophia sucked in a sharp breath and tried to pull her hand back. The sting was fiery and sharp. Rex held her wrist tight, keeping her exactly where she was. Don't pull away from me, he warned, his voice dropping low. Sophia froze. She looked down at him. His face was only a few inches from her knees. His dark eyes were focused completely on her palm. He was so careful, wiping away the dirt from her broken skin. It made no sense. He was the rudest, meanest guy she had ever met, but right now, his touch was incredibly soft. Who are you running from? She asked quietly. Rex stopped wiping. He didn't look up. I'm not running from anyone. Liar, Sophia whispered. That suit yesterday from Vanguard Holdings. The way he looked at you, he knew you. He was terrified of you. Normal baristas don't terrify corporate lawyers. Rex threw the dirty alcohol pad onto the pile of broken floorboards. He started wrapping the white tape tightly around her palm, covering the blisters. You watch too many movies. He was just a coward in a cheap suit. It was a Tom Ford suit, Sophia corrected him. And you know exactly what I mean. You told Matt you would throw him out in the rain, and Matt actually believed you. You walk around this shop like you own the entire block. Why are you hiding in a dead coffee shop, Rex? Rex finished taping her right hand. He grabbed her left hand and started cleaning it. He finally looked up, his dark eyes locking onto hers. The silence between them felt heavy, almost dangerous. Some people, Rex said slowly, his voice like grinding stones, do very bad things to survive. And when they get tired of doing bad things, they find a quiet place to stand still. This shop was quiet until you bought it. So I ruined your hiding spot, she said, not breaking eye contact. You ruined my peace and quiet, he corrected, wrapping the tape around her left hand. But Vanguard Holdings is a problem. They buy up bad blocks, knock them down, and build luxury condos. They have billions of dollars. If they want this building, they will get it. They will find city inspectors to shut you down. They will find tax loopholes. They will crush you, Sophia. You are a little fish playing in a shark tank. I'm not afraid of them, she lied. Her stomach was doing backflips. Rex tied off the tape and stood up. He towered over her, casting a shadow across her face. You should be. Your ex-fiancé next door is a joke. He's a rich kid playing party planner. Vanguard is different. They hurt people. Have they hurt you? She asked, leaning forward on the crate. Rex looked away, staring out the dirty front window. The sun was finally starting to come up, casting a weak grey light across the street. They don't hurt me, he said softly. I hurt them, that is why I left. Before Sophia could ask what the hell that meant, a loud noise outside made them both jump. A massive white delivery truck pulled up right in front of the window, blocking the street. Two men in matching blue uniforms jumped out. They went to the back of the truck and rolled up the metal door. They started pulling out towering stacks of pure white folding chairs, giant rings of expensive pink flowers, and shiny silver tables. Sophia felt a cold knot form in her stomach. She stood up from the crate and walked slowly to the window. The door to the building next door opened. Matt walked out onto the sidewalk. He was holding a steaming cup of coffee in one hand and a clipboard in the other. He wore a perfectly tailored navy coat. He looked rested, happy, and completely in charge. He pointed at the delivery men, telling them where to take the flowers. He's doing a morning wedding, Sophia whispered, her hands curling into fists against the dirty glass. The Johnson account, they booked him 6 months ago. It is a $50,000 event. Rex walked up behind her. He stood so close his chest almost brushed her back. He looked over her shoulder at the street. 50 grand for some folding chairs and dead plants. People are stupid. It's about the status, Sophia said bitterly. She watched Matt smile and shake the delivery driver's hand. Matt sells them the idea of perfection. He makes them feel like royalty. And she looked down at her taped, bleeding hands and her ruined boots. I have a pile of rotting wood. You have a pile of rotting wood, Rex agreed, his deep voice vibrating right behind her ear. But you don't have a fake smile. That guy out there, he is empty, he's a salesman. You are actually building something, even if it is a huge mistake. Sophia turned her head to look at him. Their faces were inches apart. She could see the tiny flecks of gold hidden in his dark brown eyes. For a second she forgot about Matt. She forgot about the broken floor and the freezing cold room. Are you trying to make me feel better, Rex? She asked, a small, teasing smile touching her lips. Because you are really bad at it. Rex stepped back, putting distance between them instantly. The cold mask slammed back down over his face. I'm trying to get you to stop crying at the window so we can finish the floor. Break time is over. He walked back to the center of the room and picked up his crowbar. He jammed it into the floor and ripped up another massive piece of tile. The loud crack echoed off the walls. Sophia watched him for a moment. He was hiding something massive. A man like Rex, strong, dangerous, hiding from billionaire developers, didn't just pour coffee for minimum wage, but right now he was here. He had bandaged her hands. He was helping her rip up this floor. He was fighting her battles. She turned her back on the window. She didn't look at Matt again. She walked over, picked up her crowbar with her freshly taped hands, and stood next to Rex. If we finish the floor today, she said, stabbing the metal into a seam, I'll buy you a pizza. I don't eat cheap pizza, Rex grunted, pushing down on his bar. Too bad I'm broke. Cheap pizza is all you get. Rex let out a sound that was almost a laugh. Fine, but I get the whole pie. They worked side by side in silence, tearing the broken pieces of the shop apart, ready to build something new. The smell of greasy pepperoni and cheap garlic crust filled the dusty air of the ruined coffee shop. It was past 9 at night. The green linoleum was completely gone, leaving behind a massive expanse of rough, splintered subfloor. Piles of broken tiles and rusty nails were swept into the corners. Sophia sat flat on the dirty wood, her back leaning against the bottom of the counter. Her entire body throbbed with a dull, heavy ache. Beside her, sitting with his long legs stretched out, was Rex. The flat cardboard pizza box rested on the floor between them. "This tastes like cardboard covered in ketchup," Rex muttered, taking a massive bite of his third slice. "You are eating it pretty fast for someone who hates it," Sophia pointed out. She picked up a slice with her taped hands, wincing slightly as the stiff tape pulled at her skin. "And it cost me $12. It is a masterpiece of budget dining." Rex chewed slowly, his dark eyes watching her struggle to fold the flimsy pizza slice. "If you are this broke, how are you paying for the paint, the new lights, and the plumbing?" "I have credit cards," she said, taking a bite. The cheese was rubbery, but she was so hungry it tasted like heaven. "And I am going to sell my engagement ring. The diamond is huge. Matt made sure everyone knew exactly how much it cost. It should cover the big repairs." Rex stopped chewing. He stared at her for a long moment, the dim light from the single hanging bulb casting harsh shadows over the sharp angles of his face. "You still have the ring?" It wasn't a question, but Sophia felt her cheeks get hot anyway. "Yes, I kept it. He bought it, but he embarrassed me in front of 200 people. The ring is my compensation." "Usually women throw the ring at the guy," Rex said softly, his deep voice rumbling in the quiet room. "Or they drop it in the ocean. Keeping it means you are holding on." "I am holding on to an asset," Sophia snapped, suddenly defensive. She put her half-eaten pizza down on the box. "I don't want him back, Rex. I hate him." "Good." Rex grabbed his dark thermos and unscrewed the top. He took a drink of cold coffee. "Because he is weak. If he couldn't handle a wedding, he definitely can't handle a business war. He will crumble the second you actually become a threat." Sophia looked at him, surprised. "You think I can actually become a threat to him?" Rex turned his head. His dark eyes locked onto hers. The heavy, intense way he looked at her made her breath catch in her throat. "I think you are stubborn enough to drive him completely insane. And I think this place," he gestured to the rough walls and broken floor, "has better bones than that fake plastic palace next door. You just need to stop playing nice." "I am not playing nice," she argued. "You bought cheap pizza to thank your employee," he fired back, a ghost of a smirk pulling at the corner of his mouth. "You are soft, boss. When Vanguard Holdings comes back, they won't bring pizza, they will bring a wrecking ball." Before Sophia could ask him exactly how he knew so much about Vanguard's tactics, the single light bulb above them flickered. It buzzed loudly, a harsh electrical crackle, and then died. The coffee shop plunged into total darkness. The hum of the old refrigerators behind the counter spun down into silence. The only light left was the orange glow of the street lamps bleeding through the dirty front window. "Did a fuse blow?" Sophia asked, her voice sounding too loud in the sudden quiet. She moved to stand up, but a heavy hand clamped down on her shoulder, keeping her pinned to the floor. "Stay down," Rex whispered. His voice was completely different. The grumpy boredom was gone. He sounded cold, sharp, and fully awake. Sophia's heart started to hammer against her ribs. "Rex, what?" "Quiet." Rex moved his hand from her shoulder. In the dim orange light, she watched him rise to his feet without making a single sound. He didn't step on any of the creaky floorboards. He moved like a shadow, slipping toward the back hallway that led to the alley. Sophia ignored his order. She wasn't going to sit in the dark like a scared child in her own building. She pushed herself up, ignoring the burning in her thighs, and followed him. She kept her footsteps as light as possible, letting her hands trail along the wooden counter to guide her in the dark. She found Rex standing perfectly still by the heavy steel back door. He was looking at the small, square window near the top of the door. The glass was thick and wired, blurring the dark alley outside. "The power didn't blow," Rex said, his voice a low vibration in the narrow hallway. "The whole street is lit, it's just us." "Someone cut the line?" she asked, stepping closer to him. "Probably smashed the breaker box on the exterior wall," he replied. He reached out and grabbed the cold metal handle of the back door. "I'm going out there. Lock the door behind me and do not open it until I knock 3 times. "Are you crazy?" Sophia grabbed his forearm before she even realized what she was doing. His arm was solid muscle, tight and warm under her taped fingers. "If someone is out there, you can't just walk out. We should call the police." Rex looked down at her hand on his arm, then up to her face. Even in the dark, she could see the hard, dangerous glint in his eyes. "The police take 20 minutes to get to this block. By then, whoever did this is gone, and they come back tomorrow to do something worse. I handle my own problems." "It is my building," she whispered fiercely, refusing to let go of his arm. That makes it my problem. Sophia, he warned, his voice dropping an octave, let go. No, we go together or nobody goes. Rex let out an angry breath through his nose. He grabbed her wrist and peeled her hand off his arm, but instead of pushing her away, he shifted his grip, his large hand wrapping completely around hers. His thumb brushed against the rough edge of the tape he had applied earlier. Stay exactly behind me, he ordered. If I tell you to run, you turn around, you lock this door, and you do not look back. Understand? Yes, she breathed, her pulse racing. Rex turned the deadbolt with a soft click. He pushed the heavy steel door open. The cold night air rushed in, smelling like damp garbage and wet pavement. The alley behind the shops was a narrow, dark tunnel of brick walls. A single, flickering security light hung above the back door of Matt's building next door, casting long, twisted shadows across the cracked concrete. Rex stepped out first, pulling Sophia with him. She stayed glued to his broad back, her yellow boots making soft, scuffing sounds. There, Rex muttered. He pointed to the brick wall of their building. The grey metal box that held the main power breakers was completely destroyed. The door was ripped off its hinges, and the thick black wires inside were hacked to pieces. It wasn't an accident. It was a clear, violent message. Sophia stared at the ruined wires, a cold wave of panic washing over her. It's going to cost thousands to fix that. An electrician has to rewire the whole main. They know, Rex said. He let go of her hand and stepped closer to the box. He reached out and pulled something off the sharp, jagged metal of the destroyed door. It was a thick, expensive piece of cardstock. He held it up to the dim light from Matt's building. Sophia leaned in close to read the black print. Construction sites are dangerous. Sell before someone gets hurt. There was no signature, no company logo. Vanguard, Sophia whispered, her stomach twisting into a tight knot. Matt said they play dirty, but this is a Mafia tactic. They are worse than the Mafia, Rex said, crumpling the heavy cardstock in his fist. The Mafia operates in the shadows. Vanguard operates in broad daylight with an army of lawyers protecting them. Why do they want this block so badly? Sophia asked, looking around the dirty, empty alley. It's nothing special. Rex didn't answer right away. He looked down the dark alley, his jaw clenched tight. The muscles in his neck were strained. He looked like a man standing on the edge of a war zone. Because they are building a massive commercial complex 3 blocks away, Rex finally said, his voice flat. They need a direct access road to the main highway to increase the property value. This street is right in the way. They are buying out every building, tearing them down and paving over it. Sophia stared at him. How do you know that? Rex slowly turned his head to look at her. The silence stretched between them, heavy and cold. I read the news, he lied smoothly. It was in the paper. You are lying, she said, stepping directly in front of him. She tilted her head up to meet his dark stare. You don't read the local paper, Rex. You know exactly what Vanguard is doing. You knew that suit who came in yesterday. Who are you? I am the guy standing in a freezing alley with you, he snapped, his temper flaring. Stop pushing, Sophia. You don't want to know my history. You have enough problems. I am making it my problem, she argued, poking a taped finger hard against his chest. You are working in my shop. We are fighting the same people. Tell me. Rex grabbed her wrist, stopping her from poking him again. His grip was tight, his body suddenly stepping so close to hers that she had to tilt her head back even further. He backed her up, one slow step at a time, until her shoulders hit the cold brick wall of her building. He planted one hand on the brick beside her head, leaning over her. He was so close she could feel the heat radiating off his chest. The smell of his dark coffee and clean sweat completely blocked out the trash of the alley. You want the truth? He asked, his voice a rough, dangerous whisper against her cheek. Yes, she breathed, her heart hammering wildly. My full name is Rex Tiyun, he said slowly, watching her eyes widen. My father is the founder and CEO of Vanguard Holdings, the man buying up this block, the man sending thugs to smash your power box. He's my older brother. Sophia stopped breathing. Her mind spun wildly, trying to connect the dots. The grumpy barista wiping down her sticky counter, the tattooed, dangerous man who fixed her floors. He was the heir to a multi-billion-dollar real estate empire. Why, she struggled to find her voice. Why are you here? Because I stole something from them, Rex said, a dark, bitter smile touching his lips. Something very expensive. And I hid here because my father thinks a rundown neighborhood like this is a disease. He never steps foot in these zip codes. But they found you, she whispered. That suit yesterday. Yes, Rex agreed softly. He recognized me, which means my brother knows exactly where I am. The smashed power box isn't just a warning for you to sell, Sophia. It is a warning for me to come home. He looked down at her lips, his gaze lingering there for a second before snapping back to her eyes. So, boss, do you still want me working here? Because if I stay, they will destroy this building to get to me. Sophia looked at the hard, unforgiving lines of his face. She thought about Matt next door, sitting in his perfect, lit building, laughing at her. She thought about her ruined wedding, her empty bank account, and the people who constantly told her she wasn't strong enough. She lifted her chin, staring right into the eyes of a billionaire heir who looked like a street fighter. You make the best coffee I have ever had, she said, her voice completely steady. You are not quitting, and they are not touching my building. Rex let out a rough sound that was half laugh, half groan. He slowly lowered his head until his forehead was resting against hers. You are a complete idiot, Sophia. I am your boss, she corrected, refusing to back away from his heat. Now how do we fix the power? We don't, he muttered, pulling away from her. The sudden loss of his warmth made her shiver. We bypass it. I'll hotwire the main line to the street lamp. It will give us enough juice to run the fridge and a few lights until you can pay an electrician. You know how to hotwire a city power grid. I know how to do a lot of illegal things, Rex said, walking toward the smashed box. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a heavy black pocket knife. Go inside, lock the door. If anyone comes near you, scream. I am not leaving you out here. Sophia, Rex turned around, pointing the blade of the knife at her. Do not argue with me right now. Go inside. She glared at him but turned and walked back into the dark shop. She shut the heavy steel door and threw the deadbolt. She stood in the pitch-black hallway, listening to the soft scraping of metal outside. He was Vanguard. He was the enemy. But as she stood in the dark, clutching her taped hands to her chest, she realized she felt safer with Rex outside her door than she ever did standing next to Matt at the altar. The single hot-wired light bulb above them hummed with a low, angry buzz. It was noon the next day, and the coffee shop smelled heavily of fresh black paint and dust. Sophia stood on the third step of an aluminum ladder. She dragged a thick roller brush up the wall, leaving a wide streak of dark, matte black paint. Her arms felt like they were made of lead. Her back screamed in protest with every movement. But she didn't stop. She dipped the roller into the plastic tray balanced on the ladder and pushed it back up the wall. On the other side of the room, Rex was lying flat on his back under the front counter. His long legs stuck out into the main walkway, his heavy work boots resting on the bare wood floor. He was covered in grease and dirt, wrestling with the old, rusted plumbing of the main sink. The sound of metal clanging against metal echoed in the empty room. So, Sophia said loudly, breaking the long silence. She didn't look back at him, she just kept painting. If you are secretly a billionaire, why are we doing this ourselves? You can't just write a check for a plumber. A loud clang echoed from under the counter, followed by a heavy sigh. I am not a billionaire, Rex's deep voice carried across the room. My father is, and the second I left, my older brother froze every single bank account I had, my credit cards, my trust fund, everything. They cut me off. To force you to come back, she guessed, rolling the paint over a rough patch of dry wall. Exactly, Rex said. He slid out from under the counter. He sat up, wiping his greasy hands on a dark grey rag. He looked completely exhausted. Sweat made his dark hair stick to his forehead. His white t-shirt was ruined, covered in black grease stains and dust. If I try to use my name to get a loan, red flags go off in my brother's office. He tracks everything. So no, I cannot write a check. You are stuck with me and my wrench. I don't mind the wrench, she said, looking over her shoulder at him. But you could have told me before I bought the cheapest pizza in Brooklyn. Rex let out a short, rough laugh. He stood up and walked over to a cooler resting in the corner. He pulled out 2 bottles of cheap water and walked toward her. You would have bought the cheap pizza anyway. You are broke. I am frugal, she corrected him, narrowing her eyes. You are broke, he repeated, stopping at the bottom of her ladder. He held out a water bottle. Drink, you have been up there for 3 hours. Sophia looked down at him. He was standing very close. She could see the dark ink of his tattoos wrapping around his thick forearms, disappearing under the short sleeves of his shirt. He was dirty, grumpy, and completely entirely wrong for her. Matt was always perfectly clean. Matt smelled like expensive cologne and mints. Rex smelled like sweat, metal, and danger. She realized she preferred the danger. She reached down to take the water bottle, but as she shifted her weight, her foot slipped on the narrow metal step of the ladder. Her heavy work boot kicked the paint tray. The plastic tray flipped into the air. Sophia let out a loud gasp as she lost her balance, her hands flying out to grab the wall, but there was nothing to hold on to. She fell backward. She didn't hit the floor. Rex moved faster than she could blink. He dropped the water bottle and stepped forward, catching her firmly against his chest. His large arms wrapped tight around her waist, absorbing the shock of her fall effortlessly. The paint tray hit the floor with a loud plastic slap, sending black paint splattering across the bare wood. Sophia froze. Her hands were pressed flat against his hard chest. She could feel his heart beating fast under his thin shirt. Her face was only inches from his neck. She stopped breathing. The air between them suddenly felt thick and heavy, making the small coffee shop feel like it was shrinking. Rex didn't let her go. He held her suspended against him, his grip on her waist completely tight. He looked down at her face. His dark eyes dragged slowly over her messy hair down to her lips and back up to her eyes. The mask of boredom he usually wore was totally gone. He looked hungry. "You are a massive liability," he whispered, his voice dark and rough. "You told me to drink water," she shot back, her voice shaking just a little bit. She didn't pull away from him. She liked the heat of his body. She liked the way his hands felt on her waist. "I told you to drink, not to jump off the ladder," he replied softly. His thumb brushed slowly against her hip bone, a tiny movement that sent a hot shiver straight down her spine. "I can't fix a broken neck, boss." "I didn't jump," she breathed, staring at his mouth. "My boot slipped." "Right." Rex leaned in just a fraction of an inch closer. The tension between them was pulling tight, like a heavy rubber band ready to snap. Sophia parted her lips, expecting him to close the distance. She wanted him to. The thought shocked her, but it was true. Before either of them could move, a loud, aggressive pounding echoed from the front door. Rex instantly completely froze. The soft, dangerous heat in his eyes vanished, replaced by cold steel. He set Sophia down on her feet and pushed her firmly behind him. He stepped in front of her, shielding her body with his own as he looked toward the glass door. A short, heavy man in a cheap brown suit was standing outside. He held a metal clipboard and was knocking on the glass with a thick flashlight. "We are closed," Rex shouted, his voice echoing in the empty room. The man didn't leave. He pointed to the hot-wired light bulb hanging from the ceiling, then pointed to a bright orange sticker he was holding. He banged on the glass again. "City Inspector," the man shouted back through the thick glass. "Open the door or I call the police." Sophia felt her stomach drop to the floor. "Rex," she whispered, grabbing the back of his dirty shirt. "He is going to see the power box. He is going to see you hotwired the city grid. That is a felony." "Stay behind me," Rex ordered in a low, flat tone. He didn't look panicked. He looked angry. Rex walked to the front door and unlocked it. He pulled it open just enough to block the doorway with his massive frame. He looked down at the short inspector. "Can I help you?" The inspector pushed his way inside, forcing Rex to take a step back. The man smelled like stale cigarettes and cheap aftershave. He looked around the torn-up coffee shop with a look of total disgust. He clicked his pen and looked at the paperwork on his clipboard. "Sophia Davis," the inspector asked, not looking up. "That is me," Sophia said, stepping out from behind Rex. She tried to stand tall, wiping her paint-covered hands on her jeans. "I am the owner." "I am Inspector Miller," the man said, tapping his pen against the metal clip. "I got an anonymous tip this morning about illegal electrical work being done on this property. The tip stated that the main breaker box was destroyed and the power was illegally bypassed to the street lamp." Sophia's mouth went completely dry. An anonymous tip. "Yes," Inspector Miller said. He looked past her, pointing his pen at the single buzzing light bulb. "And clearly the tip was right. Your main power line is dead, but you have lights. That is a severe safety violation and theft of city property." "Someone smashed my box last night," Sophia argued, her anger suddenly burning hotter than her fear. "It was vandalism. We just needed a temporary fix so we could see while we clean." "A temporary fix by an unlicensed contractor is illegal," Miller snapped. He pulled the bright orange sticker off his board. "I am red tagging this building. You are ordered to stop all work immediately. You cannot enter this building until a licensed city electrician inspects the damage, which will cost you a $5,000 fine. If you tear this sticker down, you go to jail. Sophia stared at the orange sticker. A $5,000 fine. She didn't have $500. The credit cards were maxed out buying paint and wood. This was it. She was done. The building would sit empty, the city would seize it, and Matt would win. You got a tip, Rex said softly. Inspector Miller stopped walking toward the front window. He turned around and looked up at Rex. Excuse me. Rex stepped closer to the man. The lazy, slouching barista was gone. Rex stood perfectly straight, his broad shoulders squared. He looked down at the inspector with a gaze so dark and empty it made the air in the room feel cold. I said you got a tip, Rex repeated, his voice low and smooth. Let me guess. The call came directly from Vanguard Holdings, or maybe from the event planner next door. Inspector Miller's face turned slightly red. He puffed out his chest, trying to look intimidating, but he looked like a joke next to Rex. The source of the tip is confidential. My job is to enforce city code. Your job, Rex said, taking another slow step forward, forcing the inspector to back up against the counter, is to follow orders from the men who pay you under the table. I know how Vanguard operates, Miller. They buy up a block, they find a city inspector who likes cheap bribes, and they send him to harass the property owners until they sell. Are you threatening a city official? Miller asked, his voice shaking slightly. I am stating facts, Rex said smoothly. He leaned down, placing both of his large hands flat on the wooden counter on either side of the inspector, trapping the man in place. Here is another fact. This building is not getting red tagged today. You are going to take that orange sticker, you are going to walk out that door, and you are going to lose the paperwork for this address. Miller let out a nervous, wet laugh. You are crazy, buddy. I'm shutting this dump down. If you put that sticker on the window, Rex whispered, his face inches from the sweating inspector, I will make one phone call. I know exactly who runs the zoning department in this district. I know about the kickbacks you took on the Lexington Avenue project last year. I know about the safety reports you faked for Vanguard. If you tag this building, all of those documents go straight to the district attorney. Sophia stood frozen. She watched Rex completely dismantle a corrupt city official without raising his voice. He didn't yell. He didn't throw a punch. He just used a quiet, lethal confidence that absolutely terrified the older man. Inspector Miller stared at Rex, his eyes wide and completely terrified. He swallowed hard, the sweat rolling down the side of his face. He looked at Rex's dark eyes, then down at the heavy, tattooed arms caging him in. Who are you? Miller stammered. I am the guy making coffee, Rex said flatly. Now what are you going to do with that sticker? Miller didn't say a word. His hands shook as he folded the bright orange sticker in half and shoved it deep into his suit pocket. He ducked under Rex's arm, practically running toward the front door. He didn't look back. He shoved the glass door open and ran out into the bright afternoon sunlight. Rex watched him go. He stood up straight, rolling his shoulders to release the tension. He didn't look happy, he looked angry. Sophia walked slowly toward him. Her heart was beating so fast it hurt her ribs. She had never seen anyone handle a problem like that. Matt would have panicked. Matt would have called a lawyer and paid the fine. Rex just crushed the man with pure fear. How did you know about the Lexington project? She asked softly. Rex turned his head and looked at her. The coldness in his eyes didn't fade. Because my brother ordered it. I was sitting in the room when they paid Miller off. Vanguard owns half the inspectors in this city. So they used Matt to watch me, and they used Miller to try and shut me down, she said, putting the pieces together. They are hitting us from both sides. They are hitting you because of me, Rex corrected, his voice harsh. He walked over to the cooler, picked up the water bottle he had dropped, and drank half of it in one swallow. Miller will report back to my brother. He will tell him I am here. The games are over, Sophia. They aren't going to send inspectors anymore. They are going to send people to break things, starting with me. Then we fight them, she said immediately. Rex slammed the plastic water bottle down on the counter. The loud crack made her jump. You don't fight Vanguard, Sophia. You are an event planner. You buy flowers and pick out tablecloths. You don't know how to fight men who break legs for a living. You need to sell the building and get out of here before you get hurt. Do not tell me what I can and cannot do, she yelled back, marching right up to him. She didn't care that he was huge. She didn't care that he was dangerous. She was so tired of men telling her she was weak. Matt told me I couldn't build a business. You are telling me I can't fight a bully. You are all the same. Rex's jaw tightened. I am trying to keep you alive. I'm already dead, she screamed, throwing her hands up in the air. I lost my fiancé. I lost my savings. I lost my reputation. This broken, dirty, ugly coffee shop is the only thing I have left in the entire world. I am not running away. If your brother wants this building, he's going to have to kill me to get it. The room went dead quiet. The only sound was the heavy, ragged breathing coming from both of them. Sophia glared up at him, her dark eyes shining with angry tears she refused to let fall. Rex stared down at her. The anger in his face slowly melted away, leaving something entirely different behind, something heavier, something darker. He didn't say a word. He just reached out, grabbed the back of her neck with his large, rough hand, and pulled her hard against his chest. Before Sophia could even gasp, his mouth crashed down onto hers. His lips were hard and completely unforgiving. There was nothing sweet or gentle about the way he kissed her. It was a brutal collision. It was anger and adrenaline, and a dark, heavy tension that had been building since the exact moment she walked into his ruined coffee shop. Sophia gasped against his mouth, her eyes fluttering shut in shock. Her freshly taped hands flew up, pressing flat against the center of his dirty white t-shirt. She meant to push him away, but her fingers curled tightly into the thin cotton fabric, pulling him closer instead. Rex let out a low, rough groan from deep inside his chest. His large hand slid slowly from the back of her neck down to her waist, his heavy fingers digging into her sides. He backed her up without breaking the kiss, stepping forward until her spine hit the wall. She didn't care about the wet black paint. She didn't care about anything except the blazing heat of his mouth and the solid weight of his body caging her in. He tasted like bitter black coffee and pure danger. He kissed her like a man who had been starving for years. And to her own total shock, Sophia kissed him right back. She poured all her anger at Matt, all her fear of the corrupt city inspectors, and all her massive frustration into the kiss. She opened her mouth for him, completely letting him take over. His rough jaw scraped against her soft cheek, sending wild, hot sparks of electricity straight down her spine. Then, just as suddenly as he grabbed her, he pulled away. He broke the kiss so fast Sophia actually stumbled forward. Rex caught her elbows, keeping her on her feet. He was breathing hard. His broad chest rose and fell rapidly under her hands. His dark eyes were wide, staring down at her lips with a look of pure shock, like he had no idea his body had just moved on its own. Sophia couldn't speak. Her lips felt bruised, swollen, and tingling. She stared up at him, her heart hammering against her ribs so hard she thought the bone might crack. Rex dropped his hands from her arms as if her skin burned him. He took a huge step backward, putting safe, freezing air between them. He dragged a shaky hand through his dark hair, gripping the messy knot at the back of his head. He looked away, staring hard at the spilled paint tray on the floor. That, Rex said, his voice completely raw and shaking, should not have happened. Why not? Sophia asked. Her voice was just a weak whisper, but it sounded incredibly loud in the dead quiet of the room. Rex snapped his head back to look at her. His eyes were angry again. Because I am a problem, Sophia. I am a massive, dangerous problem. And you are a girl covered in paint who actually thinks she can fight an army of corporate lawyers. I cannot be kissing you. I need to be keeping you alive. I am not a child, she snapped, her own anger suddenly rushing back in to protect her pride. She crossed her arms over her chest. I didn't ask you to kiss me, and I don't need you to protect me. Could have fooled me, he muttered, turning his back on her. He walked over to the spilled paint and crouched down, picking up the plastic tray with a violent jerk. If I wasn't standing here 10 minutes ago, that inspector would have chained your front door shut. You are playing a game you do not understand. Then teach me, she said, taking a step toward his broad back. Rex froze, he didn't turn around. What? Teach me the rules, she said, her voice growing stronger. You know exactly how Vanguard Holdings operates. You know how your brother thinks. You know what they are going to do next. So tell me. Help me build this place so strong they can't knock it down. Rex slowly stood up. He threw the plastic tray onto a pile of trash and turned to face her. The shadows in the room made the sharp angles of his face look completely lethal. You want to play their game? Fine, the first rule is money. Vanguard only respects cash. They think you are broke, which means they think you are weak. If we are going to fix this building before they send another inspector, we need cash today. Not tomorrow, today. I told you, Sophia said, lifting her chin. I have the ring. She walked over to her canvas bag sitting on the dusty table. She dug her hand into the front pocket and pulled out a small, square black velvet box. She held it tightly in her taped hand. It felt incredibly heavy. Rex walked over to her. He didn't touch the box, he just looked at it. Open it. Sophia flipped the little lid open. The single bulb hanging from the ceiling caught the edges of the massive diamond inside, sending sharp flashes of white light across the dark room. It was a huge, flawless stone set in platinum. It was heavy, gaudy, and completely perfect for a man who cared more about his image than his future wife. Rex stared at the diamond, his lip curling into a sneer of pure disgust. He didn't buy that for you. What do you mean? She asked, frowning. Of course he did, he put it on my finger. He bought that rock for himself, Rex corrected, his deep voice dripping with insult. He bought it so every other man in the room would look at his money. It lacks soul, just like him. Rex looked up from the ring to her eyes. How much did he pay for it? $30,000, she said quietly. Rex let out a sharp, mocking laugh. We won't get 30. As soon as you walk out of the store, a diamond loses half its value. But we can probably get $12,000 for the stone and the platinum weight. That is enough to pay a private contractor to fix the main power line and install the new plumbing without pulling city permits. Where do we sell it? She asked, snapping the box shut. A pawn shop. No, Rex said immediately. Pawn shops will rob you blind. They will offer you $3,000 and laugh you out the door. You are going to a private jeweler. I don't know any private jewelers, she said. I do. Rex grabbed his dark jacket off the counter and shoved his arms into the sleeves. He looked completely serious. Grab your coat, we are leaving right now. The wind hitting Sophia's face as they stepped out of the coffee shop felt like tiny razor blades. The New York sky was a solid block of flat, ugly grey. It looked like it was going to snow at any second. Rex locked the heavy glass door behind them, checking the handle twice before turning to the street. They didn't speak as they walked to the subway station. The memory of the kiss hung between them like a thick, heavy blanket. Every time their shoulders accidentally brushed as they walked down the crowded sidewalk, Sophia felt a hot jolt run through her entire body. She tried to ignore it. She tried to focus on the black velvet box sitting in her coat pocket. The train ride to Manhattan was loud and crowded. They had to stand near the doors, pressed close together by the rush of people getting off work early. Rex stood directly in front of her, resting one large hand on the metal bar above her head. He caged her in, completely blocking her from the tired, pushing crowd. He stared straight ahead at the dirty window, his jaw clenched so tight a muscle ticked in his cheek. Sophia looked at his throat. She remembered exactly how the rough skin there felt against her lips. She forced herself to look down at her yellow boots instead. They got off the train at the Diamond District in Midtown. The street was lined with glowing windows filled with gold, silver, and bright gems. Men in thick black coats stood on the sidewalks, handing out cards, trying to pull tourists into their tiny shops. Rex ignored all of them. He walked fast, forcing Sophia to practically jog to keep up with his long strides. He didn't stop at the nice stores with the clean glass. He turned down a narrow, dirty alleyway that smelled strongly of wet cardboard and old food. Rex, where are we going? She asked, her voice nervous as she looked at the dark brick walls. There are no stores down here. The real money doesn't need a street window, he muttered. He stopped at a heavy metal door that looked like the back entrance to a restaurant kitchen. There was no sign, no handle, just a tiny black camera mounted in the corner of the brick wall. Rex looked directly up into the camera lens and stood perfectly still for 5 seconds. A loud, heavy buzz echoed through the alley. Rex pushed the metal door open and stepped inside, holding it for her. Sophia walked into a tiny, windowless room. The air was warm and smelled like cigar smoke and strong tea. A thick wall of bulletproof glass cut the room in half. Behind the glass sat an old man with thinning white hair and thick glasses. He was examining a gold watch with a magnifying loupe. The old man looked up. His eyes widened slightly behind the thick lenses. He set the watch down on a green velvet pad and pressed a button under his desk. A small speaker crackled to life. Rex, the old man's voice was raspy, carrying a heavy Russian accent. I heard you were dead, or hiding, same thing in your family. I am neither, Yuri, Rex said, walking right up to the thick glass. I need a favor, I need cash today. Yuri looked at Rex, then shifted his eyes to look at Sophia standing nervously behind him. The old man smiled, showing a row of gold teeth. You brought a girl. She doesn't look like your usual type, she looks nice. She's my boss, Rex said flatly, and she has a rock she wants to sell, no questions, no paperwork. Yuri sighed heavily. He pushed a small metal drawer out through the slot in the glass, put it in. Sophia stepped forward. Her hands were shaking slightly. She reached into her pocket, pulled out the velvet box and dropped it into the metal drawer. Yuri pulled it back through the slot. He opened the box. For a long minute, the only sound in the room was the old man humming to himself as he pulled the massive ring out and held it up to a bright desk lamp. He looked at it through his loupe. He weighed it on a tiny digital scale. He tested the stone with a small electronic pen. The stone is real, Yuri said through the speaker. The color is good, but the setting is trash, very cheap platinum mix. The man who bought this has bad taste. Sophia let out a tiny, bitter laugh. You have no idea. Rex shot her a warning look, telling her to stay quiet. How much, Yuri? The old man leaned back in his chair, rubbing his chin. 10,000, cash. 12, Rex countered instantly. His voice was hard, leaving no room for argument. The stone alone is worth 15 on the wholesale market. You know it and I know it. Give me 12 and you make an easy profit by Friday. Yuri stared at Rex. Rex stared right back, completely unblinking. It was a silent battle of wills, and Rex looked like a man who never, ever lost. Finally, Yuri chuckled. He shook his head. Your father taught you well, boy. Fine, 12,000. But you tell your brother I haven't seen you. I don't want Vanguard breaking my legs. You have my word, Rex said. Yuri reached under his desk. A moment later, he pushed the metal drawer back through the slot. Inside sat 2 thick stacks of $100 bills wrapped in tight rubber bands. Sophia stared at the money. It was more cash than she had ever seen in her entire life. It was freedom. It was power. It was the ability to fight back against the man who threw her away and the company trying to crush her. Take it, Rex told her softly. She reached into the drawer with her taped hand and pulled the heavy stacks out. She shoved them deep into the inside pocket of her coat, holding her arm tight against her side to protect it. Pleasure doing business, Rex, Yuri said, picking up the gold watch again. Try not to get killed. Rex didn't answer. He turned and guided Sophia back out the heavy metal door into the freezing alleyway. The second the door clicked locked behind them, Sophia let out a massive breath she didn't know she was holding. She leaned back against the dirty brick wall and looked up at the grey sky. A single snowflake drifted down, landing on her cheek. We did it, she whispered, a huge, real smile breaking across her face. She looked at Rex. We actually have the money. We can fix the power, we can buy the espresso machine. We can beat them. Rex stood in front of her. He didn't smile. He looked down at her glowing face, his hands shoved deep into his jacket pockets. The dark intensity was back in his eyes, heavy and dangerous. We have money, Rex corrected her gently, his deep voice carrying over the wind. But Vanguard has billions. This $12,000 is just buying us a bigger target on our backs. When my brother finds out Miller didn't red tag the building today, he is going to stop playing nice. I don't care, Sophia said fiercely. She stepped closer to him, completely ignoring the danger he constantly warned her about. We are going to win, because Matt is a coward and Vanguard doesn't know how to fight people who have nothing left to lose. Rex stared at her mouth. He swallowed hard, his jaw clenching. You are entirely too stubborn for your own good, boss. And you are entirely too grumpy for a barista, she teased softly, the tension between them pulling incredibly tight again. I told you, he whispered, leaning his face down until his lips were inches from hers. I am a lot more than a barista. The subway ride back to Brooklyn felt 10 times longer than the ride to Manhattan. Sophia kept her hand buried deep in her coat pocket, her fingers wrapped tightly around the thick stacks of cash. Every time the train jerked or a stranger bumped into her, her heart jumped into her throat. $12,000. It was enough to save her dream, but it felt incredibly heavy. Rex stood right beside her the entire ride. He didn't look at her, but his shoulder pressed firmly against hers. He watched the doors at every stop, his dark eyes scanning the faces of everyone getting on and off the train. He was on high alert. The lazy barista was completely gone, replaced by a man looking for a fight. When they finally climbed up the concrete stairs out of the Brooklyn station, the sky was pitch black. The freezing wind whipped down the street, stinging Sophia's cheeks. She pulled her coat tighter and walked close to Rex's side. They turned the corner onto their block. The bright gold spotlights from Matt's building lit up the wet sidewalk, but as Sophia looked past Matt's perfect venue toward her own dark coffee shop, her steps completely stopped. The entire front window was gone. Jagged pieces of thick glass covered the sidewalk, glittering like ice under the street lamps. The heavy metal frame of the door was bent inward, completely destroyed. "No," Sophia gasped, her voice cracking. Before she could take another step, Rex grabbed her arm and shoved her hard behind a parked delivery van. "Stay down," he ordered, his voice a harsh whisper. He didn't wait for her to answer. He pulled his heavy black pocket knife from his jacket, flicked the blade open with his thumb, and moved silently toward the broken window. Sophia crouched behind the cold metal bumper of the van, her hands shaking so badly she could barely feel the cash in her pocket. She listened to the wind howling, waiting for a shout, waiting for the police, waiting for something, but there was only the terrible sound of heavy metal smashing into wood coming from inside her shop. She couldn't just hide. This was her place. These were her walls they were breaking. Sophia peeked around the edge of the van. Rex had already slipped inside through the broken window. She took a deep breath, ignored every single instinct telling her to run away, and crept toward the front of the shop. Her yellow work boots crunched softly on the broken glass as she ducked under the bent door frame. The inside of the shop was a disaster. The smell of fresh black paint was completely overpowered by the smell of plastered dust and broken water pipes. Water was spraying everywhere from the sink Rex had just fixed. Two massive men in dark clothes and ski masks were destroying the place. One was swinging a heavy sledgehammer into the freshly painted drywall, leaving massive, gaping holes. The other was smashing the wooden front counter to pieces with a steel pipe. Rex didn't yell, he didn't announce himself, he just attacked. He moved so fast the first guy didn't even see him coming. Rex grabbed the man with the sledgehammer by the back of his jacket, spun him around, and drove his knee straight into the guy's stomach. The man let out a wet gasp and dropped the heavy hammer. It hit the floor with a loud boom. Rex followed up with a brutal, sickening punch to the man's jaw that snapped his head back. The guy dropped to the floor like a stone. But the second guy heard the noise. He turned around, saw Rex, and swung the steel pipe as hard as he could. Rex ducked, but he wasn't fast enough. The heavy metal pipe clipped him hard in the ribs. Rex let out a rough grunt of pain, stumbling backward against the broken counter. The guy raised the pipe again, ready to bring it down on Rex's head. Sophia didn't think, she just moved. She grabbed one of the heavy steel crowbars lying on the dusty floor, ran forward and swung it with every ounce of strength in her body. The heavy metal bar smashed directly into the back of the attacker's knees. The man screamed, his legs buckling instantly. He dropped the steel pipe and fell hard onto his hands and knees. Before he could even try to get back up, Rex stepped forward and kicked the man directly in the chest, sending him sliding backward across the wet floor into the back hallway. "Get out," Rex roared, his deep voice shaking the entire room. The two men didn't hesitate. The first one scrambled to his feet, grabbing his partner by the jacket. They practically crawled over each other to reach the back door. They yanked it open and disappeared into the dark alley. The heavy silence crashed back into the room, broken only by the sound of the spraying water pipe. Rex leaned heavily against the broken counter. He was breathing hard, one large hand pressing tightly against his ribs where the pipe had hit him. He slowly turned his head and looked at Sophia. She was standing in the middle of the ruined floor, holding the crowbar with both hands, her chest heaving. "I told you," Rex said, his voice deadly and low, "to stay behind the van." "They were destroying my shop," she fired back, dropping the crowbar. It clanged loudly on the wood. She walked toward him, her heart still beating out of her chest. "Are you okay? He hit you hard." "I have had worse," Rex grunted, pushing himself off the counter. He walked over to the spraying pipe, reached under the sink and twisted the main shut-off valve. The water stopped instantly, leaving a massive puddle on the floor. Rex turned around to face her. The single hot-wired light bulb above them cast harsh shadows over his face. He had a shallow cut on his cheekbone, bleeding a thin red line down his jaw. His dark hair had fallen out of its knot, hanging messy and wild around his face. He looked absolutely terrifying. "They didn't come to steal anything," Rex said, kicking a piece of broken wood out of his way. "They came to send a message. My brother is done playing games. He knows I am here and he knows you have no protection." "We have $12,000, Sophia said, patting her heavy coat pocket. "We can fix this. We can buy a new window tomorrow." Rex stared at her, running a dirty hand down his face. Sophia, look around. They smashed the plumbing. They ruined the drywall. They broke the custom door frame. This isn't a one-day fix. If the city inspector drives by tomorrow and sees this, he will condemn the building on the spot. You won't even get a chance to pay the fine. They will take the property. Sophia looked around the room. It was worse than when she bought it. The beautiful black wall she had spent hours painting was full of massive holes. The counter was splintered wood. The glass was everywhere. The cold wind blew right through the open front of the shop. Tears burned the back of her eyes, but she refused to let them fall. She swallowed the hard lump in her throat and looked back at Rex. "So what do we do?" she asked, her voice completely steady. Rex watched her closely. He saw the tears she was fighting back. He saw the dirt on her face and the paint on her clothes. He took a slow breath, walking over to the flipped milk crate. He sat down heavily, wincing as his ribs pulled. "Sit," he ordered, pointing to the spot on the floor next to him. Sophia walked over and sat down cross-legged on the bare wood. She was so tired her bones ached. "You didn't run," Rex said softly, looking at her in the dim light. "I told you to hide, and you came inside and hit a 200-pound thug with a crowbar." "He was going to hit you in the head," she said defensively. "I couldn't just watch." Rex let out a dark chuckle that turned into a groan as he grabbed his side. "You are completely crazy, boss, you know that. Most girls would have run to the police station." "I am not most girls," she said, lifting her chin. "And the police wouldn't have gotten here in time. You told me yourself, Vanguard owns the city. We have to fight our own battles." She looked at the blood drying on his cheek. "Where is the first aid kit?" "Under the back counter," he muttered. "Bottom drawer." Sophia stood up, walked carefully over the broken wood and found the small white plastic box. She brought it back, sitting closely in front of him. She opened it, pulled out an alcohol wipe and ripped the little paper package open. "Lean forward," she said. Rex hesitated, then slowly leaned his face toward hers. He was so close she could feel the heat of his breath on her cold skin. She gently dabbed the wet, freezing pad against the cut on his cheekbone. He didn't flinch. He didn't even blink. He just stared directly into her eyes, his dark gaze completely unreadable. "Why did you stay, Rex?" she whispered, wiping away the blood. "You could have walked away when the power went out. You could have left when that inspector showed up. You have a $1 billion family waiting for you. Why are you sitting in a freezing, broken coffee shop getting hit with steel pipes?" Rex didn't answer right away. He let her clean the cut, his eyes tracing the soft lines of her face. "Because my family is a prison," he finally said, his voice a low, rough rumble. "My father spent his entire life destroying people to build his company. When my older brother took over, he was even worse. They expect me to wear a suit, sit in a glass tower, and order men to burn down buildings just to clear a city block. I hated it. I hated them, so I left." "But they cut off your money," she said softly, throwing the dirty wipe into the pile of trash. "I don't care about the money," Rex said. He reached out, wrapping his large, warm hand completely around her wrist. His thumb brushed against the white athletic tape still covering her palms. "I just wanted a quiet place where nobody asked me for anything. Then you bought the shop." "I ruined your peace," she teased, a small, sad smile touching her lips. "You ruined everything," he agreed softly, but he didn't let go of her wrist. His dark eyes dropped to her lips. "You are loud, you are stubborn, you buy cheap pizza and you don't know how to use a crowbar properly." "I hit him right in the knee," she argued, her heart starting to beat faster. "It was a lucky swing," Rex whispered. He let go of her wrist and slowly slid his hand around to the back of her neck, his long fingers tangling in her messy hair. He pulled her a fraction of an inch closer. "But you didn't run. That means something to me, Sophia." The wind howled through the broken front window, blowing freezing air across the room, but Sophia felt completely warm. The tension between them was pulling tight again, heavy and thick. She wanted him to kiss her again. She wanted it so badly it scared her. Before he could close the distance, a loud crunching sound came from the sidewalk outside. Rex's head snapped up. His hand dropped from her neck instantly. He stood up, completely ignoring the pain in his ribs, and put himself between Sophia and the broken front window. A man was standing on the sidewalk, looking at the shattered glass. It wasn't a Vanguard thug. It was Matt. He was wearing a dark grey wool coat over his perfect suit. He held a sleek black umbrella to block the wind. He looked at the massive holes in the drywall, the broken counter, and the puddle of water on the floor. Then he looked directly at Sophia. A slow, totally fake look of pity spread across his perfectly clean face. Sophia, Matt called out, stepping carefully up to the broken door frame. He didn't come inside. He didn't want to get his shiny leather shoes dirty. I heard a massive crash. Are you all right? What happened here? Sophia felt her blood turn into boiling water. She pushed past Rex and walked right up to the empty space where her front door used to be. She stood a few feet away from Matt, the freezing wind whipping her hair around her face. We had a break-in, she said coldly, but we chased them off. Matt sighed, shaking his head slowly like she was a stupid child. I told you this was a bad idea, Soph. This neighborhood is changing, but it is still rough. It is not safe for a woman to be out here trying to play contractor. Look at this place. It is completely ruined. It is not ruined, she snapped. It is a disaster, Matt corrected, his voice dropping the fake pity and becoming hard. Be realistic for 1 second in your life. You have no money, your building is destroyed. The city inspector is going to drive by tomorrow and condemn this entire lot. It's over. Matt reached into his expensive coat pocket and pulled out a folded white envelope. He held it out toward her. I am trying to help you, Matt said smoothly. This is a cashier's check. It is for exactly what you paid for the building. Sell it to me right now. Cut your losses, go back to your parents' house, and let the professionals handle this block. If you don't take this check tonight, you walk away with absolutely nothing tomorrow. Sophia stared at the white envelope. This was his plan all along. Let Vanguard do the dirty work, let them break her down and destroy her building, and then sweep in like a hero to buy the property for dirt cheap. He thought she was weak. He thought she would cry and take the money. Sophia looked at the envelope. Then she looked up at Matt's perfect, smug face. She smiled. It was a slow, dangerous smile she didn't even know she had inside her. Keep your money, Matt, she said softly. I wouldn't sell this building to you if it was the last pile of bricks on earth. Matt's face turned red. His hand dropped to his side, crushing the envelope. You are an idiot. You have no windows, Sophia. You have no plumbing. You can't open a business in a war zone. Watch me, she whispered. She turned her back on him and walked straight to Rex. She didn't look back to see Matt storm away down the sidewalk. Rex watched her, a slow, deeply impressed smirk pulling at the corner of his mouth. That was stupid, but very brave. I have $12,000, she said, pulling the heavy stacks of cash from her coat. She held them out to him. You said you know how the real money works. You said you know people who don't ask questions. Find me a crew, tonight. Rex looked at the cash in her hand. He looked at her fierce, completely determined eyes. The grumpy barista was gone. He looked like the prince of the underworld again. He reached into his pocket and pulled out his cell phone. The guys I call, Rex warned her, his thumb hovering over the screen, they aren't regular contractors. They are fixers, they work in the dark. Once I make this call, my name gets tied to this building permanently in the streets. Vanguard will know I am fully backing you. It means total war. Make the call, she ordered. Rex dialed a number and put the phone to his ear. He didn't look away from her. I need a ghost crew in Brooklyn, Rex said into the phone, his voice cold and sharp. Full structural rebuild, drywall, glass, plumbing, electrical. I have 12 in cash and I need it completely finished before the sun comes up. He paused, listening to the voice on the other end. Because if it isn't done by morning, Rex said, a deadly edge slipping into his tone, Vanguard takes the block. And tell the boss this favor is for Rex Tiyun. Rex hung up the phone and shoved it back into his pocket. He looked around the ruined shop, then back down at Sophia. They will be here in 20 minutes, he said. Get the brooms, we have a lot of broken glass to sweep.